You mentioned automation, and this is a big part of it as well too. Is contract management a way to optimize your staffing while increasing automation?
Well, yeah, I mean, that sort of ends up being the early crux of a lot of these solutions is you'll often find a smaller organization that is very paperwork heavy because of contracts. Maybe they do a lot of small medium deals, but there's still a contract that goes in between those small medium deals, whether it's a several $100 or a several $100,000 or several $100 million deal. Like the contract just grows in size because of more clauses, really, right?
Absolutely.
But you still got contracts. If you want to ingest all those contracts into some repository, let's say it is that you're using an ERP, because that's a very normal way to deal with your customers, really, is to have them in ERP. You would often, if you're going to do a really good job of understanding your risk and your obligations, you're going to want some data entry people there to look at these contracts, pull out the pieces of information that you deem are really important, and put them into your database. Your database being your ERP in this instance. So this is a job that I've done when I was like a late teen as well. I did it in the accounts side, so receivable and payable, which is no different. So there we got purchase orders and invoices, and we would key things into a system, and eventually it got picked up and paid. So this is kind of akin to that, is there's some data entry person who's often doing that in accounts. The blind spot that most organizations have is you don't always have somebody who's doing this for all contracts, right? So in terms of automation, yes, it makes a lot of sense to help the people that are doing this even in accounts, because why do you want them having to do a repetitive kind of blind task when you could probably get them to do some more critical thinking? I mean, you're paying people for their brains, you're not paying them for their hands. Exactly. So you want to get them to a place where they can use their brains to a higher capacity, right? And I mean, that's a whole organizational and digital change, a change management thing, but still, it's very possible that using them for a higher value task rather than using them for data entry could yield a lot more benefit for your organization. And a good contract management system, especially one like Zenith that can extract all the material information in a contract and in generally any of these agreements, helps your whole account side and your legal side have a real oversight over all of your contractual obligations and the people who have bought from you, their contractual obligations. So it could lead to, this is one of those scary things, it could lead to less people being employed at your organization if you have the thought that I'm just going to replace the data entry people, or it could very well lead to we buy something that is going to do the job, the repetitive task over and over really well, and it's probably going to do it at incidents of less mistakes. And then I can put these people to use doing something other. Maybe it is that I'm growing them into accountants, or I'm growing them into controllers, or whatever kind of like their path forward is. And just let the automation run itself at that point. It's a system, so just let it go. Yeah. And I mean, that ends up being sort of what Zenith really is all about. It's the purpose that we created this tool, was really that we saw many places in the marketplace where there is a need for extracting clauses, understanding contracts, agreements, invoices, purchase orders, all kinds of legal clauses and things that, you often won't read yourself. Imagine the typical terms and conditions on a website. There's a lot of stuff in there, and almost everybody just goes, yep. Right?
I agree, check the mark, and move on, right?
Exactly, right? So
guilty.
In business, it's a little tougher to do that. So you can't just agree to anything that's on the other side. So you do have to have legal go through it.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, imagine a world in which you ingest all of these clauses. You know that out of possibly, let's say, 100 clauses that are in that document, 94 of them, so 94% of the clauses, are just like standard boilerplate, nothing special about them, and your contract management system understands that. So then it highlights 6 clauses and says, you might want to have legal look at these. So now you've cut your legal cost down by maybe not 94%, but at least the amount of work that they're given is 94% less. So Zenith does that very well, and it integrates right into your ERP, and it integrates into your workflow for contract management and really for augmenting all of the data that goes into your repositories. That's the whole purpose of Zenith, and one of the many parts of Apogee Suite that we market and sell.